Is the smallest it's been since World War I. You believe that? We will build the 350-ship Navy that our country needs and really is requesting.
Morning Glory, America. I'm Hugh Hewitt, and that, of course, was President Trump as candidate Trump, promising a 350-ship Navy. But as acting Navy Undersecretary Thomas D. said at a conference this week, we won't get there, if at all, for more than 30 years, mid-century, to quote him exactly. So when did the president change his mind? Maybe my guest can help us out on that. Richard Von Spencer is the 76th United States Secretary of the Navy. He's also a Marine, having served on active duty as an aviator from 1976 to 81, and as a businessman investor ever since. He was sworn in the first week in August, so he's had almost 3 months on the job, probably able to answer anything, Mr. Secretary. Welcome. You got the best job in the world, in my view.
Thank you, Hugh.
And you just heard the president. That was one of his critical promises, 350-ship Navy. What happened to that promise?
That promise is still there, and as Secretary of the Navy, I'm working on that goal. Mr. D, unfortunately, being an acting placeholder, I don't know if he was speaking for his own accord, but this is one more reason we need to get our politically appointed people in the Pentagon and working for us. I need to get my team there who are aligned with our vision.
Can we get it done in 10 years? Is 350 ships possible within 10 years?
It's pretty aggressive, Hugh, I have to admit, for 10 years. But I tell you what we have to do. We have to lay the cornerstones. These are large capital asset investments that we're making that take 5, 7 years to build. The submarines, the aircraft carriers, the DDGs, the LCSs, they all have different timelines, but they're long extended timelines. We need to lay the foundation now. We have some challenges with the Budget Control Act, and we have to wrestle with that. We're going to have to deal with that. But what we are doing right now is we're focusing on two primary things: building new, increasing capabilities, and a subset of that, looking we might have available to us that we might be able to replay one more time.
Now, you know, the cheerleader, I want to come back to that, replay one more time. The cheerleader of the Navy has always been the SecNav. Franklin Roosevelt, Jim Webb, John Lehman, these are all storied people who step out and say, and they say 350 every single day. Is that your job? Is that what you think your job is?
My job, that is one of my jobs. But this is a critical part of increasing our capacity and capability, which we need to do. The Navy is our forward deployed force, and it does two things. One, it has presence, which keeps peace and keeps orderly actions around the world. It keeps the sea lanes open, which, as you know, it's our primary arteries for commerce. Two, it delivers the kinetic punch when we need to deliver it.
Have you talked to the president about it? There's not even a plan yet. I mean, a written down plan that says this many frigates, this many cruisers, this many destroyers, this number of carriers coming out. That's not even written down yet. Has he bugged you about this?
It's underway as we speak. And one of the things we've been doing is actually doing a deep dive to find out what the makeup will be. During my confirmation, you heard me talk about 355 and do I know the makeup. I actually don't know the makeup immediately because technology is going to be our friend here. I can't tell you in 10 years what exactly it would look like. I will tell you that we'll probably get great yield out of the unmanned area, and we're just scratching the surface there as an example.
Now, the unmanned area makes me worried because I'm a big booster of the Navy, and I'm afraid they'll put out a couple of drones somewhere and call it a ship on a barge. Is that not what you're talking about, right?
No, not at all. We're talking about various platforms, whether undersea, on sea, or in the air. But they're very complex pieces of equipment. But the learning curve that we're noticing on this is very, very steep.
A couple of months ago, President Macron of France cut the French military budget dramatically. The top soldier in France quit in protest. Can you see something like that happening? Because the sequestration has truly devastated the Pentagon. Not just the Navy, but every branch. Readiness crises now.
This is true, Hugh, and I think one of the things that I'd love America, the taxpayers, to pay attention to is the devastation that the Budget Control Act wreaked on the Pentagon. As an example, in the Navy alone, we estimate that the continuing resolutions, the fact that we can't get a budget, but the whole process of Budget Control Act and cap sequestration has cost us between $4 and $5 billion due to the starting and stopping of acquisition programs, the inability to start new programs. It has really punched us in the gut. We need to get over that. Here is where the hope is, and I don't think you'll see anyone walking out the door. As I did my office calls on the Hill and am now working with the Hill, Everyone on the committees is leaning in on how they can help, how they can let the Navy and get the Navy to 355, how we can get readiness back. Very little resistance in how they can help. They all are leaning forward.
It cost us $5 billion. It may have cost us 17 lives. Was readiness responsible for the Fitzgerald and the McCain collisions? Do you fault the Budget Control Act for the death of those sailors?
Two answers there. One, we're waiting for the studies to come out, the reviews to come out, Hugh, and those will be coming out shortly. The second answer is fundamentally, yes, I do. The Navy is an organization that is biased to action. No is not a word that is easily reached for in the lexicon. We will do when tasked, but we've been overtasked. We've been stretched very, very thin. 16 years of war, and now you have restricted resources. It was a compounding effect. We were exhausting our enabler accounts. We're exhausting parts. Deployments were stretched. Maintenance availabilities were missed due to deployments. It was just a compounding effect. We are now getting our hands around that. It took us 16 years to get in this hole. We're not going to get out of it overnight, but